Command, do you copy? Commander's gone.
Hey, I told you not to follow.
The forest near the abandoned army training ground was not on any tourist map. Locals avoided it, saying the place was cursed. Still, that made it the perfect adventure spot for my group of friends. We weren't soldiers, just curious explorers. The idea of camping near the ruins of an old military base sounded exciting. At first it was. The barracks were crumbling, trees had grown through broken walls, and old signs with faded warnings still clung to rusty posts. But one name kept appearing everywhere: Commander Harlow. It was painted on broken doors, carved into wooden beams, even written on a half-torn notebook we found inside a barrack. The strange part, none of us had ever heard of him. We set up our tents near the cracked concrete of what used to be the parade ground. As the sun went down, we lit a fire. We laughed, shared food, and dared each other to explore the buildings in the dark. But soon, the air grew unnaturally still. No owls hooted, no crickets chirped. It was the kind of silence that pressed on your ears until you felt dizzy. Then came the footsteps. Slow, heavy, marching, they echoed through the trees, steady as a soldier's drill. "Probably the wind," one friend whispered, though we all knew it wasn't. The rhythm was too perfect, too human. The sound circled us, just beyond the glow of the fire. Step, 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 around and around, as if someone invisible was pacing. I gripped my flashlight, fighting the urge to shine it outward. Something deep in my chest told me I didn't want to see what was making that sound. Later that night, as we tried to sleep, I heard it. A voice, low, commanding, and full of authority. "Fall in, line up." My eyes snapped open. The voice came from outside my tent, no more than a few feet away. "Fall in." I held my breath, praying my friends had heard it too. When morning came, their pale faces told me they had. We searched the area. Nothing. No footprints. No sign of anyone. Just that name again. Commander Harlow etched into the wall of the mess hall, freshly scratched. As if someone had done it during the night. By the second evening, tension was high. No one laughed anymore. We sat close to the fire, listening. That's when a shadow appeared. It wasn't cast by the firelight. It was darker than the night itself, shaped like a tall man in uniform. It stood at the far end of the parade ground, motionless, watching. Then, step by step, it began to march toward us. The closer it came, the colder the air grew. My breath fogged even though it wasn't winter. One of my friends shouted, "Who's there?" But the figure gave no answer. It simply raised a hand in salute. Before vanishing into thin air, we didn't sleep at all. On the third night, everything changed. Around midnight, the ground began to shake softly, like distant thunder. From the woods came rows of footsteps. Not just one set this time, but many. A whole formation of boots striking the earth in unison. We stared into the darkness, and slowly, shapes appeared. Soldiers, dozens of them. Their uniforms were torn, their faces pale, their eyes empty. And at their front, walking tall and proud, was Commander Harlow. His voice thundered across them. It was late October, the kind of month where the woods feel both beautiful and dangerous. The air was cool, the trees dressed in orange and red, and the nights grew longer each day. My friends and I, 5 of us in total, had been talking for weeks about escaping the noise of the city. A camping trip deep into the wilderness felt like the perfect idea. We drove for hours, leaving behind paved roads until dirt tracks carried us into the forest. By the time we parked, no cell service, no houses. Not even the faint sound of traffic could be found. Just endless trees and silence. We hiked in, carrying our gear. The spot we chose was close to a clearing with thick woods on every side. It looked perfect. We set up 2 large tents, built a fire pit, and laughed as the flames came alive. The smell of smoke mixed with the crisp autumn air, and everything felt safe. For now. The first night was calm. We roasted marshmallows, told dumb stories, and admired the stars. No clouds, just endless dark sky dotted with tiny lights. Eventually, we crawled into our tents. I was in one with my friend Mason, while the others shared the second. The forest whispered with the sound of leaves, and soon everyone drifted to sleep. But somewhere past midnight, I woke up, not to a voice, not to a dream, to a sound. Crunch, 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 footsteps. At first, I thought maybe it was Mason sneaking out, but he was asleep beside me. I held still, listening hard. The sound circled the tent. Slow, steady, deliberate. Someone, or something, was walking around us. I waited for laughter, thinking one of the others was playing a prank. But the steps never broke rhythm. No chuckles, no whispering, just steady walking, always around the tent. My mouth went dry. I whispered, "Mason, wake up." He stirred groggy. "What is it?" "Listen." The footsteps continued. Now he heard them too. His eyes widened. We didn't move, didn't breathe. Just lay frozen, counting each crunch of leaves. And then, as suddenly as they started, the steps stopped. Silence pressed in heavy. Eventually, exhaustion forced us back into uneasy sleep. The next morning, we told the others. They laughed it off, saying it was probably a deer or some animal. But the footsteps had been too heavy, too human. I searched the ground outside. Nothing. No prints. No disturbed dirt. Just smooth earth and fallen leaves. That day we hiked, but none of us could shake the uneasy feeling. The forest was too quiet. Birds should have been singing. Squirrels should have been darting about. But there was nothing. The silence followed us everywhere. That night, fear returned. We sat around the fire, and no one joked this time. Every crackle of wood made us flinch. When it was time to sleep, we reluctantly crawled into our tents. I don't know how long I slept, but the sound woke me again. Crunch, 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 the footsteps. This time, they didn't just circle the tent. They stopped right outside. I held my breath as the shadow of something moved across the thin fabric wall of the tent. It looked like a person, tall, still. Then a hand pressed against the fabric, 5 long fingers pushing inward. I nearly screamed, but Mason grabbed my arm, eyes wide, silently shaking his head. We lay frozen, watching as the hand slid slowly down the side of the tent, and then vanished. The footsteps resumed, circling again. At dawn, we found nothing outside. No prints, no signs anyone had been there. By the third night, we were on edge. Everyone had heard the noises now. None of us could explain it. We argued about packing up and leaving, but the hike back in the dark felt more dangerous than staying. So, reluctantly, we stayed. That night, the fire wouldn't stay lit. No matter how much wood we fed it, the flames sputtered and died. Eventually, we gave up, sitting in the dark with only flashlights. When we retreated into the tents, silence fell heavy, too heavy, and then it began. Crunch, crunch, crunch. This time, multiple sets of footsteps. They surrounded both tents, slow, steady, circling, sometimes near, sometimes farther away. We whispered to each other, terrified, trying to count how many there were. 3, 4, maybe more. Then came a voice, a whisper, so faint we almost missed it. "Come out." My stomach dropped. Another whisper followed from the other side of the tent. "Come out." Different voice, same words. None of us moved. None of us dared to unzip the tent. We clutched our flashlights like weapons, waiting for dawn. When the sun finally rose, the footsteps stopped. But outside, for the first time, there were marks, dozens of them. Human footprints pressed deep into the soil, circling our campsite in perfect rings. None led into the forest, none led out, just circles, tighter and tighter, around the tents. We didn't even talk. We just backed and left. But as we walked, I looked back one last time, and in the distance, by the trees, I saw them. Figures still watching, not moving, not following, just waiting. It was supposed to be a peaceful weekend. 4 of us, me, my best friend Leah, and our 2 college buddies, Ryan and Claire, decided to rent a small cabin deep in the forest. The cabin looked perfect in the photos online. Old, rustic, and isolated. Just what we wanted to escape the stress of school and city life. The drive took hours. By the time we reached the dirt road leading into the woods, the sun was already sinking. The trees grew thick, their branches stretching overhead like claws, blocking out the sky. When we finally pulled up to the cabin, something about it felt wrong. The wood was weathered, the windows streaked with dust, and the porch sagged under its own weight. Still, we laughed it off. It was just an old house. Inside, the cabin smelled of damp wood and something faintly metallic, like rust. A fireplace sat in the corner, cold and unused. There were 2 bedrooms upstairs, so we split into pairs. The place felt eerie, but we told ourselves it was fine. That night after dinner and games, we climbed into bed. The forest outside was silent, too silent, but exhaustion pulled us into sleep. Sometime after midnight, I woke up, not to silence, not to dreams, to a sound, tap, tap, tap. I sat up, holding my breath. The sound came from the wall, right beside my bed. It was faint, rhythmic, like knuckles rapping against wood. I froze, staring at the wall. The sound stopped. "Probably the pipes," I whispered to myself, though I knew there were no pipes in this old cabin. I lay back down, heart racing. That's when it started again. Tap, 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 this time from the window. I turned slowly, the moonlight just barely illuminating the glass. And in the pale light, I thought I saw the faint outline of a hand. But when I blinked, it was gone. I told no one in the morning. The next day, we explored the woods. They were dense, endless, and unnervingly quiet. No birds, no animals, just silence. When night fell, we lit a fire outside. Ryan tried telling jokes. Claire roasted marshmallows. Leah strummed softly on a guitar she had brought, but the air never felt relaxed. Something was wrong, though none of us wanted to admit it. When we went to bed, the tapping returned. Tap, tap, tap. This time, everyone heard it. Leah shook me awake, whispering, "Do you hear that?" The sound came from the walls, the floorboards, the windows, everywhere. Always 3 slow knocks. Always moving, as if circling us. Ryan called out, "Who's there?" Silence, then tap, 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 from the ceiling. We all stayed awake until dawn, the sound finally fading with the rising sun. On the 3rd day, we searched the cabin for answers. In a drawer by the fireplace, I found a small leather journal. Its pages were yellowed, the ink smudged. Most of it was unreadable, but one entry stood out. The tapping doesn't stop. At first, I thought it was mice. Then the walls shook, then the windows. They want in. They always want in. The final page was torn, the words barely legible. If you hear it, don't answer, never answer. We looked at each other, uneasy. None of us laughed this time. We decided to stay one last night before leaving. That was our mistake. The tapping began earlier, just after sunset. Tap, tap, tap. This time, it was louder, more insistent. The walls shuddered with each knock. The windows rattled. Claire screamed as something hit the glass hard, leaving a faint smear. Ryan rushed to the door and locked it tight. But the tapping didn't stop. It grew faster, spreading, until it was as if dozens of hands were drumming on the cabin from all sides. We huddled in the living room, clutching flashlights, whispering prayers. Then came the voice, soft, whispering, right outside the door. "Let us in." My blood froze. Leah shook her head violently, whispering, "Don't answer. Don't you dare answer." The tapping grew furious, shaking the walls. The door frame trembled. We thought the cabin itself would collapse. And then, silence. When morning came, we stumbled outside. Around the cabin, in the soft dirt, were dozens of handprints. Too large for children, too twisted for adults. Long fingers pressed deep into the earth, circling the house again and again. We didn't stay. We didn't even pack. We just ran. As we drove away, I glanced back one last time. The cabin stood still, the forest quiet. But in the upstairs window, for the briefest moment I saw them. Hands, dozens of them, pressed against the glass, tapping. The forest looked beautiful that morning. Golden mist, dew on the tall grass, and the faint sound of a distant stream. But behind that calm beauty, something felt off. The silence wasn't natural. No birds, no rustling, just stillness. Mark and his family had hired a local guide named Elias for a 3-day trek through the northern mountains. He was experienced, mid-40s, soft-spoken, and said he'd lived near these woods his entire life. He knew every trail, every ridge, every danger. Or so he claimed. The first day went perfectly. Elias led them through dense pine forests, showing hidden landmarks, a stone carved with strange markings, a waterfall that looked like glass, an abandoned hunting shed. By sunset, they reached a clearing where Elias said they'd camp for the night. He helped set up the tents, built a fire, and even cooked for them, stew with herbs he picked nearby. "Tomorrow," he said, staring at the dark tree line, "we go higher. The air gets thinner. Don't wander off at night." His tone wasn't a warning. It was a plea. The second morning began wrong. When Mark crawled out of his tent, Elias was gone. His backpack was still there, his boots too. The pot from last night was on the fire pit, stew still half inside, now cold. The ground was damp, and there were footprints leading away from camp, but they stopped just 20 feet into the woods. No sign of struggle, no animal prints, just nothing. Mark called his name for an hour. His wife Anna checked the trail map, but the compass wouldn't settle. The needle spun aimlessly. Their daughter Mia said she'd heard something before dawn, a voice whispering near the tent. "He said my name," she told them, pale and shaking. "He said, 'Come with me.'" Mark didn't believe her, not really. But as the day went on, they began hearing it too. Soft footsteps in the brush, the sound of someone whistling Elias's tune, the same one he hummed while cooking. But every time they turned toward it, the woods were empty. By nightfall, they were too scared to move. The forest grew darker, denser. The wind carried faint voices. It sounded like Elias calling them one by one. Anna, Mia, Mark. That night, no one slept. Mark kept the flashlight on. At 2 a.m., he saw movement outside the tent, a figure standing still, only a few feet away. Elias's shape, his same jacket, same height. But when Mark whispered his name, the figure tilted its head slightly and smiled. The light flickered, and when it came back on, the figure was gone. But the footprints were there, bare, wet, pressed deep into the dirt. At dawn, they found something by the trail, Elias's voice recorder, the same one he used to take notes. Mark pressed play. Static. Then heavy breathing. Something out here, Elias whispered. Not alone. It's copying me, following us. It's not a bear, not human. It knows my name. There was a rustle, then a distant scream. The tape ended. They decided to leave, but every direction looked the same. The trees twisted, trails looping back. Even the river changed course. Time felt strange. The sun seemed frozen, neither rising nor setting. Anna started murmuring to herself, repeating, "We just have to follow Elias." She swore she saw him standing by the ridge, waving for them to come closer. Mark tried to pull her back, but when he blinked, Elias was standing right beside her, whispering something into her ear. His eyes were dark, completely black. Then he turned and walked into the forest. Anna followed. Mark ran after them but tripped. When he got up, they were gone. Only 2 sets of footprints in the mud, one large, one smaller, both leading into nowhere. He screamed until his throat gave out. Only Mia stayed, silent, frozen. By the time rescuers found her 3 days later, she was sitting by the same cold fire pit, clutching the voice recorder. She hadn't eaten or spoken. When they tried to take the recorder, she screamed, "Don't touch it! He's still out there!" Authorities later reviewed the tape. At the very end, after the scream, there was something new. A man's voice, calm, whispering. Found them, following now. But it wasn't Elias's voice anymore. It was Mark's. Years later, hikers still report seeing a man with a weathered face and bright glassy eyes walking the mountain trails, always a few steps ahead. He hums softly, like someone remembering a tune from another life. When people call out to him, he turns slowly, smiles faintly, and says, "Stay close, I know the way." Then he walks into the trees and disappears.